step. So the nice thing about the ferment, especially when it's too far along, is that all you have to do is add baking soda instead of baking powder, and it will bubble because it's the acid from the sourdough ferment will activate the vinegar, and science experiment go. So all I'm going to do is add this in, dump these on the griddle real quick, and be right back. Alright, so we hit the dirty griddle. I turned the stove on and it didn't work. But luckily it didn't ruin my bread, it didn't cook it, it just made it rise a little bit more. This stupid thing tends to shut off in the middle of the process. But I'm not complaining because I got a good extra rise out of it, and I was able to turn the oven back up to 500 because I forgot and left it as the original preheat of 350. So you got standard pancakes. If you don't know what pancakes look like, that's what they look like. So you add baking soda, butter, sweetener, seasonings, and you got pancakes. That's what I did to make the shrimp things last night. I just added shrimp paste to this paste and threw it out here without sugar or honey added. So we'll let these cook and move on here in a second. Alright, so we're moving on while those are cooking to creme fraiche. Creme fraiche is basically sour cream that you can cook with without it separating. We're just going to take a jar of creamer. I'm going to add some buttermilk to the container for the creamer. I fill about half the container. And the cream from this is going to help feed the buttermilk. So I'm not being gross and cross-contaminating. There's a lot with fermentation that'll liberate your mind about what goes bad and what's not bad. This food's really not bad unless it stinks or moldy. Or you don't know what the bacteria is and you don't want to eat it, but it's pretty rare that food goes bad. Alright, so creme fraiche, same thing. We're just going to lay that on the counter. And when it gets the right consistency, strain it out. And all this stuff, you know, they say 24 to 48 hours. It's not true. I mean, it could literally be a day and a half. You know, there's a point where it's like it's worth giving up on, but 98% of the ferments work, and they work just fine. Alright, so before my soup finishes, I'm going to... Alright, I should have added these a little bit ago. So this is basically just lentils that we added into kombucha. It's got some yeast growth on the top. It might look gross to you, but when you get used to it, it's just normal. So we're going to take and dig out some of these and throw them in my soup. So this and probably a little bit I'm going to grind up and turn it into a paste. But basically, I just threw kombucha over some lentils and let them sit overflowing in the sink because they build up pressure and continuously overflow and push the water out unless you use a really big vessel, and I don't care about all that. I guess I'll show you this part. I'm going to make a little loaf of raspberry bread for the old lady. And these are just frozen raspberries I dumped some honey on. And I'm basically grilling them up real quick. Making a nice syrup to add to the bread. And if you want to see, look at our beautiful pancakes. Whoa. So that's all I'm doing is it only takes about 2-3 minutes to make this really dense syrup that I'm going to go ahead and throw in the bread to ferment. Getting them off of the skillet is not easy, but if you have a good spatula, I suppose I'll show you that part, because dumping it out and frying it isn't exactly the hardest part, but I kind of assume not many people are using a flat top. So that's the end of that. Look at this big nasty onion. It's a walking onion. That's actually one of the biggest walking onions I've ever seen. You cut this open, it will burn like you would not believe, but if you're sick, got runny nose, allergies, or I wrap this up in a cloth and wrap it around my face when I'm doing animals and stuff. Alright, more of a socially acceptable state of undress. So I'm going to take some sage, peppermint, dill, basil, sage, lemon balm, a whole calendula flower, some other leaves I grabbed out of the yard. Why not throw the top of that onion in there? and I'm gonna throw some onion, throw it in the blender. The onion, actually, when I was a kid, I had a really bad ear infection. Nothing was working. Absolutely everything under the sun was failing completely. But just steaming an onion, throwing it over my ears, got rid of that infection. It was one of the most painful things I was like crying out to God to save me from. So if you have an area like I said, your sinuses and stuff like that that's susceptible to infection, onion is a really good thing to add to your mask, like charcoal. Dip it in charcoal and throw it in a fabric, and you got yourself activated charcoal onion mask. So we're gonna throw this in here, blend it up with an egg, 1 egg. So before I'm done cutting up this piece of chicken, I did cook this chicken breast the other day, and chicken breast is a staple in the house. If you just bake roast a whole chicken, or bake chicken thighs, we love chicken thighs for the texture of the meat. But if you just keep them baked in the fridge and all week, you can make tacos, burritos, salads, anything you really feel like. Those two things are like the staples. And I mean, you can, as long as you have a protein meat, then you can do any of these things that I'm pretty much cooking right now. So, and we're back. Alright, I got some pizza sauce that's coming close to going out from the fridge, and I don't want it to go bad, so I'm going to go ahead and cook it again, so heat treat it again so it doesn't mold on us or have any issues, and it'll last us another 3-4 months making pizzas on sandwiches and stuff like that. So this is primarily discard. I'd say that'd be about enough. Alright, so I'm going to dump this fluid, which was basically, I went crazy and added a cherry tomato and a tomatillo to it. So we'll whip this up. I am cleaning and doing the dishes in between. This is not the best consistency for what I'm currently doing, but with it being lightweight like that, I can stir in another egg. And get a little bit more fluff out of it. Egg whites will give you the fluff. The egg itself does change the consistency, but it's not that big of a deal. Again, we will lose some of the benefits by adding some fresh flour. Consistency is consistency though, man. If you're gonna enjoy your food, you gotta have the right consistency out of it. Alright. So we'll let that sit and process. It's not really gonna ferment worth of nothing, but we'll do that and I'll be right back. Alright, so that diced chicken, we got fermented lentil paste, and we're going to take some Italian seasoning and mix that in. What else? I'm not using that now. So we're going to mix them up, throw them on to fry for just a few minutes. Frying the fermented paste will kill the probiotic value, but the nutritional value and the degassing value will still remain. Bean patties fry up really well. I like fried beans a lot. If you haven't had fried beans, they're flippin' delicious. I did totally forget to add this, didn't I? So I forgot to add the spaghetti sauce I'm fixing to cook. Give it a good stir, that way if there's any bad bacteria forming on the top, you'll dilute it with the whole mess. There's a couple scoops of pizza sauce. We're going to pull the rest of this into this pan. Alright, so I just added olive oil to the spaghetti sauce and let it cook down. There's my soup. My soup's delicious. Sorry if I eat while we work. Alright. So I'm mixing that spaghetti sauce. It's interesting because the beans have that fermented, they have kind of a cheesy smell. So it almost has like a lasagna smell with that pizza sauce. Really good. So we'll let that cook down for a minute. And we'll come back here and get started on the strawberry bread. Alright, so for the bread, all breads are consistency. And really all you're going for is a consistency. And when you bake your bread, it's going to be that shape when it's done. So if you can't get it to rise to the size you want before you bake it, it ain't going to rise. So I'm taking, who cares, it's like maybe 4 cups of flour. I'll put a cup back. I'm not trying to make a big loaf, it's just a dessert loaf with some discard. So we're going to take just indiscriminate, that's about a cup. Probably a little more than we need as far as discard. Being a dessert, we will use coconut oil. And I cannot stress enough how little measuring really matters in a lot of this stuff. In the beginning, you really do need to look up recipes for like an example, but once you look up a recipe, like any recipe for bread, you just replace half a cup of flour with sourdough, let it sit for overnight to rise, and you'll have the health benefits and a normal loaf of bread. A lot of people think of sourdough as sour, and that's absolutely ludicrous. The only thing sour about sourdough is the approach. So I'm kind of going to guesstimate. I gotta go get more milk, give me a second. Alright. So pretty much all bread is about 3/4 of a cup of fluid to 4 cups of water, and that's to get like pizza dough. That's to get pizza dough, bread loaf, like muffins, banana bread, a bunch of other stuff. We'll probably even make some banana bread here in a minute, but the ratios are about the same, but what you're actually needing to focus on is the consistencies over the ratios, if that's possible. Alright, so we're doing strawberry bread, so we can go ahead, or we're doing raspberry bread. So we'll throw a little bit of almond in there, some skinny mon. Who really cares how much? Some nutmeg. Some honey. Some cloves. I'm trying to do all this stuff real quick so you see there's a trend. You get spices that you crave, you get spices that you like, you get spices that are medicinal, all sorts of things that you'll use as you need them. Egg whites help the bread rise and get a nice fluffy consistency. And so since I know I have probably just over 2-3 cups. I did kind of make a mistake. I threw the sourdough starter in with the bread. I guess that's a little bit of a mistake. And I'm going to put a pinch here. I'm getting the feeling from my gut that I didn't put enough coconut oil, but we'll just call some olive oil. Happy, healthy, medium, and halfway to butter. Alright. So the mixing and all that, I mean, you mix this stuff so much by the time it's needed and everything, it's really not that big of a deal. Especially with the fermenting process, all this stuff really pretty much mixes itself. I just threw the egg yolk in with the bean paste. That's why I don't feel like eating eggs. Salted egg yolk right now. Alright, I'm gonna mix this until I get a consistency that's worth showing. Alright, so this consistency here is a little runny. I kind of figured it would be because I took a cup of water or a cup of flour out. So we'll go ahead and add a little bit more flour. And we're going to add, let's say half of it. I'm feeling like we should add about half of this. Leave some of that to spread around in the middle. Get it, yeah, we'll do that. And then we'll just mix that in and be right back. Alright, we're still a little too moist. This moistness, if it's sticking to your skin, you're going to have a hard time kneading it. If you're trying to do some pastry stuff where you throw some oil out and get some good thin layers, this isn't a bad consistency. But we're looking for bread where we can knead it and not have it all over our fingers too bad. It's going to be sticky, but... Alright, so I'm going to cut some fresh young peppermint tips. We're always trying to increase our minerals. So it's not much, but it'll be enough to add a little bit of mineral uptake. Get our body used to it. So it's a little too fluid. It's consistency wise, you can see that it's great for biscuits, pancakes, stuff like that. But what we're trying to do is more of a fluffy, kind of a raisin bread consistency, if you know what I mean. I have a feeling I'm gonna have to add a bit more fluid, but I'll go ahead and do this till I get the consistency right. Okay, I've added about a cup of flour, so I'm gonna add a little bit more salt. And I'm gonna take some of this coconut oil, or this peppermint oil I made the other day. Add that to it. So it's just coconut oil that was set on a hot plate with peppermint in it. I strained it out, so it's double infused. I strained out the organic matter and put more in and doubled it up again, let it cook for a good bit so it got nice dark green, beautiful hue to it. Alright, so we'll pause again. Alright, this is about a perfect consistency for a nice fluffy, fairly moist loaf. We don't want it to be too dry, don't want it to be too moist. We'll let it get dried out. So we're just going to knead it, add a little bit more flour until it's exactly where I want it. I didn't know this. I used to knead bread like a retard, and I mean that in the least offensive way. But my wife kind of showed me that you kind of pull that tail out from when you're pushing, press it in, fold it, press it in, fold it. And you're just trying to form air pockets. And with this, we're not exactly trying to develop gluten or anything, because we're just going to ferment it. Alright, so we throw a little bit of oil in the bowl. Scrape this off the counter so this doesn't happen in the bowl. Squeegee that bugger around, give it a flip, squeegee it